There's a cane right there. Need it.
Beat him with it. Is it a sword cane?
You hit record, didn't you?
Stab him with it.
Yeah, I heard it.
Listen,
How long?
ain't nobody moving too good these days.
Well, here's the problem with this foot jacked up and walking weird. I because of that,
Your
now
back.
it's screwing up my back, and I'm getting all jacked up.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Insert Disc 2, where we talk about our medical problems. Well, first up was Chad with the jacked up foot.
Let me tell you about my IBS.
I've got that. Don't poke fun.
that too. You got.
It's due to his jacked up back.
Is that irritable bowel syndrome?
That's right.
Yeah,
Irritable back
my
syndrome.
entire digestive system, start to finish, is all jacked up.
It's true.
In pipe to out pipe, it's all toast.
Well, maybe it's all that toast.
So we've gathered here this evening to discuss...
Who's getting hit? We've gathered here this evening.
We're going to talk about... there were some things left unsaid from our last discussion about our memories of the long-lamented BBS era of computing. And Aaron, talk about some of the more interesting personalities that you've known. Oh, and before we get started, we're here with Chad. Say hi, Chad.
Hi, Chad.
And Aaron's here.
Hello.
And Brent.
Hey, how's it going?
Okay, Aaron, start with... what were some of the more colorful characters that you came into contact with?
Well, we were discussing this off mic. I was telling you, in those days, the BBSs had one thing in common, and that was to use them. You had to have some level of knowledge and not be a total moron. Now, that didn't mean you were a normal person. Most of the people were absolutely out of their minds. And so we met a lot of these guys, and the ones that came to mind, we knew a guy named Starman. His real name was Dave.
Was that from the Bowie song? Is that where you got that?
I would assume, but you
or
never
was it
know.
from Pro Wrestling on the NES?
No. I almost guarantee it wasn't that.
The old TV show. Probably.
But yeah, it could have been. But Starman was a good guy. Now I know you and him had some problems, Chad. But he used to come up to the house all the time. He's the fella that first told me he'd seen something called the World Wide Web, and he was like he worked for the Corps of Engineers, and he was talking about using their computers to go to the World Wide Web and was explaining to me what it was, and I was like, I don't know what the hell that is. It sounds stupid, you know. So that was my first experience with anyone even talking about the World Wide Web was Dave. When I was in college, I was a DJ at Marshall on our radio station, and
WMUL.
That's right. I was an unlicensed, unregulated pirate DJ because they thought I had my license because I lied. So, and then they stuck me on the morning show with a girl named Terry. Terry was a girl that was a sort of a up and coming, kind of a big deal manager at the station, and she was much older than me, but she looked like she was about 12. She got carded everywhere she went. They would always pull her over when she was driving. She looked real young. Big Fleetwood Mac fan, and she used to dress like Stevie Nicks. And I'm getting.
How did Stevie Nicks dress?
You know, like witchy. Very witchy. Shawls and lace and that sort of stuff.
Thing.
When I'd go to her house or her apartment, she had candles and crap lit up. She loved that stuff. Anyway, this chick was always bugging me to take her out, to take her to these things.
Seducing you.
Well, whatever. But
more hexing, really.
Finally, I went over there a couple times, but the thing that broke the camel's back was she wanted me to go to this black tie affair because she worked for the local television station, WSAZ, and the weatherman there they were having a party for him, which was the guy that played Mr. Cartoon, by the way. And I was like, listen, I'm not doing no black tie. Screw this. And so she kept bugging me, so I was like, I gotta find a way out of this. And so I always do it. I need to find some way out, which is find some sucker to take my spot. And enter Starman. I brought that guy in. I introduced him. I was like, hey, you guys can talk for a while. I'm gonna go down to the store. And when I came back, they were making out, and I was like, okay, that problem solved. I moved on. But anyway, they were together for a while. That's pretty much the extent of what I remember. Also Starman drove like a maniac. I remember hitting that. There was a railroad crossing there. What was that, 5th Avenue or whatever? No, 3rd Avenue. And he would hit that thing going about 1,000 miles an hour, and he'd jump through the air like the Duke boys. That drove like a maniac. So I remember that about him. Do you have any memories of Starman on top of your head?
Not really. Not right off. Except I think he was assimilated by EverQuest at some later point.
Yeah, I think he got in the online role-playing game thing. But he was a good guy, and he was a guy we met over the BBSs. We'd see him all the time on the BBS.
He worked for the Corps of Engineers, didn't he?
Yeah.
So he had some money coming in.
Yeah.
And yet he
I knew this was coming.
he always would go to other people's houses to use his BBS time at somebody else's machine. I don't know what was going on with that. I think he was trying to find some sort of anonymity that he couldn't get by using his own computer at home. Yeah. Oh, wait. He didn't have one.
Starman was one of a series of what I like to call BBS mooches that we had a lot of.
Get me started.
You know the number one mooch, and you know who it is, don't you? Who's the most annoying mooch you ever saw?
I don't know. There were a lot of them.
Doctor Who is the guy that comes to mind. Doctor Who was this annoying little dork. I hope he's not listening because I'd hate to hurt his feelings. But the doctor would come over, and I wouldn't answer the door. I'm like, I'm not letting this goof in. And he would scream from the street, "Are you home? Are you home?" This guy drove me nuts, man. Do you remember Doctor Who?
Yeah, didn't he one time come up to your house and you had ordered pizza and he ate all your food?
That happened a lot. Yeah. That's why I was so thin and beat down back in them days.
Of course, you've made up for it by eating Doctor Who.
That's correct. Yeah. That's right. He's right.
Yeah, I always wondered what happened to him, but I guess he was a snack there for you somewhere.
He couldn't rebirth then. It was over for him.
So if you were a BBS moocher, what is the advantage of using somebody else's computer other than your own? Other than I guess phone line charges.
Well, Chad was the king of the mooch hosts. Why don't you tell him what the moochers did when they come over? Because I know you hosted many a mooch.
Well, not intentionally, but eventually I drew the line to it because it got
tell them what happened.
Well, they would come over and they would say it was their time to play their turn or whatever on the game, and they'd want me to basically drop everything that I was doing just to let them log in to do their stuff. It's like,
what were you doing though?
I don't know, just anything. It didn't matter what I was doing.
But
I could have been taking a shower. I could have been using the bathroom, fixing dinner, and they had to get their turn in. It's like, go bug somebody else.
Tell the good listeners how long this went on.
Not that long.
But how long what did you do when they wanted to come mooch? What did you do?
Well, there was one point when about 3 or 4 of them showed up at the same time, and I had already had plans with another friend that wasn't a loser, moocher, idiot type. And they were saying that they wanted to play their turns. I basically just had to say, look, get out. They wouldn't leave. They still wanted to play their turn, so I just unplugged the computer.
What games were these people playing at this time?
Oh, Lord. What?
Space Dynasty, Solar Realms Elite, Trade Wars. But, I mean, you let these people mooch off you for months.
Well, that was my fault for being
Chad was like
guy.
the human doormat. He was too nice. He would just let these people, and they'd come in and eat his food. Sit there and play.
No, they never touch my food.
They never touch your food.
No.
They come in there and but they would take over the computer for the afternoon, effectively.
Well,
no matter what you were doing.
Not quite an afternoon, but
revisionist history. So yeah, and you finally put a stop to it.
Of course, you got mooched on plenty.
I got mooched on as well, and it was irritating, to say the least, when someone would come up. But
of course, you were living in an apartment that was on the second floor. You could have very easily launched them out that second floor window, which I'm kind of surprised you never did.
Here's the thing about the BBS and in the old days is, unlike today, like very few people had computers, and it wasn't like everyone had one, and so.
Well, they had phones though.
No, they did not.
What?
No, this was before. Even,
what are you, 8?
This wasn't even cell phones.
Here's my question: did you ever take advantage of the moocher? Say, yeah, you can play my turn. You can play your turns in like Trade Wars, but you have to give me like X amount of in-game goods.
It wouldn't happen. These moochers were soulless. You couldn't negotiate with them. But did I ever take advantage of the moochers? I don't. With the exception of Starman pawning off that chick, I can't think of another time where I got something out of it that worked out well.
Well, there was an advantage looking back in hindsight that I should have done. If I'd ever annoyed anybody or ticked somebody off to the point where they wanted to kill me, I guess I could have surrounded myself with a circle of moochers to use like cannon fodder, so to speak. So
many would die instead of just one.
Yeah, but I'd still be safe. So.
But they were quite insistent that they had to get their turns in. That's true. I mean, they would come up, they would call me at all times of the day or night.
I'll tell you, was there ever a time when you were on the BBS and you logged off and you're like, well, this is probably going to be the last time that I'm on the BBS? Because I'm sure there was some overlap when you had the World Wide Web and you were doing stuff.
There was never a time. In fact, I can tell you, like I said, when I moved to Kentucky, which would have been 1993, the first thing I did, in fact, before I moved, I made sure to get all the BBSs and sign up. In fact, that's where I met my buddy Shaggy, was on his BBS, Chef Groovy. And so I wanted to try to make friends and stuff, because I thought, what's the easiest way to make friends in this new town where I don't know anyone? And that was through the BBS, because I'd made friends in Huntington doing the same thing. And I did meet some people in Lexington like that, but I had... I think the BBSs went to bed when I was signed up. There was a point where to get on the World Wide Web, you had to get through AOL. I think we mentioned that before. Oh. And it was horrible. And I knew AOL was garbage back then, but I was like, I got to get on the web, and there's no other way to do it. And when I found a local number that would let me get on the web and not have to go through AOL, that was pretty much the end of the BBSs. I think that was it. Because, I mean, at that point then, they were sort of pointless. I don't remember. Could
you tell, I mean, during that time period that they were starting to go away?
I've heard Rob talk about that, how people were slowly leaving them. I don't remember that. Do you? I don't remember, the BBSs dying. I think I was a pretty early adopter.
You left the ship early.
And then we had cable modem a lot earlier than a lot of people, because we made friends with a guy in there who ran a ISP, and who was just installing cable. We were the first people in town to get cable modem, and so at that point you can forget it. And that would have been around '94. So yeah, and then BBSs they didn't have a modem anymore at that point. So yeah, but I don't remember a time when they were dying. It was just like we were BBSing and then we weren't. I mean, there's footage.
There wasn't a slow transition.
No, I'm sure afterwards there probably was.
One thing that I do want to bring up. Aaron was talking about AOL, and that was pretty much the only way to get on the internet to start with. And a lot of people, as time went on, they bash all the people that were on AOL, but pretty much just about everybody started on it.
You're right.
That's all there was.
You're right.
But the people that had enough sense moved on when the option opened up.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of funny. I was sitting there thinking, man, when did I stop using BBSs? And I know exactly when it was. It's when Aaron took his computer and went to college. But I was thinking, man, what did I do from BBS to internet? Because there was a good chunk of time.
So what years was this, just to give us some
This would have been
Nintendo, probably.
90 to 95.
Mm-hmm.
And the only online activity that I can recall during that time would have been X-Band for the Super Nintendo. And looking back on it now, I mean, mainly it was used for multiplayer matches, multiplayer fighting games. But it also had sections of it that was very BBS-like, where you could get on and you had your own little personal area that you could put up text on your wall. People could come and visit you. And I remember running my little area like a BBS, where I would change the information. And I had 40 or 50 people visit me every day to see what my new updated information was. I never thought about that until just now.
So basically,
and that was
like
definitely
a pseudo Facebook.
Well, it was more facts about games, because I would get into the magazines and look up all the hints and tricks, and then put them on my little wall area, and people would come and visit me.
Now, we were just talking about the X-Band on the show the other day. Do you remember how exactly it connected? How did it connect to the console?
It was cartridge slot.
Okay, so it was like a 32X basically sort of thing?
Yes, as I remember. And then phone line into it. And mostly it was direct connect as opposed to... But to matchmake, you went to a service to get matchmaked, and then once the matchmaking was done, you direct connected to your person. I believe. I don't remember the technology. I never knew the technical side of it when I was a kid playing it.
How did the X-Band fit into the machine?
Cartridge slot.
And did the cartridge go on top of that, or did you download the cartridge?
No.
There was definitely no downloading of the cartridge.
Yeah.
I think it was like a 32X.
Okay. I was wondering about that. I've got an X-Band somewhere. I think it's your old one, but I don't know what I've done with it.
And then I guess, but there was obviously a keyboard too, right?
Nope.
Because it was all
It was all type of
joystick.
joystick, yeah.
Okay.
And I remember another thing I remember doing with X-Band was ANSI art. We talked about a little bit that. I remember doing ANSI art pictures because I tried to draw different character faces.
Tasteful nudes.
No, yeah. Very, very few Starship Enterprises or anything.
Did you ever play in the online console stuff? that you can remember? You didn't really want a console guy, were you? Right, for the most part.
I think the only one that I did anything with was probably probably much later the original Xbox.
Oh yeah, that's way late in the game at that point.
So do you notice that a lot of the BBS people, did you ever reunite with them later on down the road, like when EverQuest was starting to become a thing? Did you ever run into
There was no way to
anybody?
contact them.
Yeah,
that's the problem.
Communities were way fractured.
I mean,
by that
in the
point.
BBS days, and we touched this a bit last time, but we would have a bowling party, and that's or something in the real world, and or people would come to your party. I just think I remember going to Dr. Feelgood's party. Did Feelgood? I think he lived in Barbersville, didn't he? And him and his girlfriend, we'd party with him, and there was a bunch of people there. Mata Hari, there was this girl that used to come to all the bowling parties and stuff. I remember a girl. I'll never forget. There was this girl called Love Child, and I talked to her for years. And by the way, girls were actually on the BBS, which is something else. There were some, and they would. I hung out with some of them. And it was, it was sort of surprising, but not that surprising. Not like it. I mean, now I'd be much more surprised if someone was a real girl, because I just assume everyone I talk to on the net is a guy, sometimes pretending to be a girl.
The ratio from girls to guys online now is way closer to 50-50 than it ever was.
Well, I'm just telling you, it's
BBS time.
But I remember I'd never met Love Child, and I heard her knock on my door one day, and I looked at the peephole, and I lived in a pretty dumpy apartment, and there was this really good-looking redhead there, and I was like, "What the hell's that?" I don't know her. And so I opened the door, and she goes, "Hey, Devil Bunny!" And I'm like, "Hey, you!" And she goes, "It's Love Child." I was like, "Well, son of a gun." She came in, we hit it off. I was like, "Man, this is great." She's like, "Well, I just wanted to stop by and see you. I'm moving away." I was like, I'll never forget that. Just like, I was like, "Well, she's gone." But the parties and stuff were great. You could connect with people, and then you would occasionally talk to them on the phone. Like I said, the BBS people, there weren't no cell phones, and so phone stuff was just in general in that time period. There wasn't as much calling people on the phone. People would just stop by. The pop in was the way you did it back in those days. Everybody popped in.
Well, that was basically in an era like pre-cell phones when they had a device called a pay phone that you would put money into to call people if you were out.
Of course, a lot of these guys didn't have no money because that's why they were moochers. But
of course, there was always the trick with the can tabs. You can take the can tab off,
short it out,
the phone.
That's an old War Games shtick.
Yeah.
But a lot of times people would come around and it was cool.
Sometimes.
But when everyone left the BBS, that's one thing I do remember. It's like I don't remember a time where I was like, see you later, Dr. Feelgood, and then I'm never going to talk to you again. It just didn't happen. A lot of times what would happen is the BBS you were on would just go away. And so any friends you'd made, any people you talked to every day, there were people we talked to every day. And they would just be, and you had no way to get in contact with them if you didn't know where they lived or their phone number.
Actually, I'm trying to think of anybody that I still communicate with that was on the BBSs back in the day, and at this point, you're pretty much the only one at this point.
Yeah,
that also that made user IDs so much more important, because if you were one name on one board and the same name on a different board, if the one board went down, someone might still be able to reconnect.
Right.
You're right.
I mean, now people have dozens of usernames if they want to.
Yeah. I kept the same name on every board. I never changed because you're exact. Plus, you had a rep. You would build up your rep.
Yeah. There were times in real life when people would call you by your handle.
All the
you'd
time.
Be just like,
I don't know what that feels like.
Yeah.
odd. It's like having a nickname.
He knows. Trust me.
Aaron doesn't know John's real name.
Well, I know now, but that's why.
For the longest time, Aaron called John Boat because that's all he knew him as.
And now I just can't stop. But anyone that knows
people and everybody associated with the show calls me Boat.
Well, this happens a lot with me, and because of my poor memory. Hey, like I told you before, when I'd go to the mall and I'd be like, "Hey, Dr. Feelgood," he'd go, "Hey, Bunny." We'd go up and high five, and he'd be with like Doctor Who and Jeremy Feeple and some other guys. I thought for years Jeremy Feeple's real name was Jeremy Feeple. I didn't realize that was a character.
Yeah, that's true.
And so did you?
Just reading, not I'm sure I did at the time, but just recently I'd completely forgotten about that guy, and I was like, oh yeah, that guy. And you actually corrected me and said, yeah, that was his handle. It's like, whoops, okay.
Yeah, I think was his real name Ron or something like that.
Sizemore.
Yeah, and then like Road Warrior. I never knew his real name. Was it Scott something? That's just a guess.
I thought you were going to say, I thought Road Warrior was his real name too.
But I mean, you didn't know, like...
His parents loved wrestling.
At the parties, we all used our handle names. I don't remember ever... Do you know, like Matahari? I would call her Matahari. I don't know her real name.
Just here's a little incident that came up. You remember Hot Flash?
Yes,
from
absolutely.
The boards?
Yep.
She actually came into where I work one time. She was she was going to start taking college classes again, and I just saw her. And as much as I talk about calling people by their handles, I just immediately I knew her real name, but I called her by her handle. I was like, "Hey, Hot Flash." Well, she was with her aunt or something, her sister, and she's like, It kind of was an awkward moment because she just thought that was kind of weird.
Must be happy your handle wasn't like Sex Bunny.
I don't ever remember calling you by your handle.
Well, that's because I actually was one of the few that changed every now and again, and that was by choice, and also because of the fact that anything I came up with, people would hassle the crap out of me.
It was a sport. It was a sport. We had a lot of time.
Now, what do you think what is the closest modern day equivalent of BBSs?
Facebook.
Forums.
Facebook.
Both.
Forums.
I'd say they're sort of both right. If you took the live chat out of Facebook, but the difference is, I mean, it's hard. I'll tell you what, local. There used to be a thing. Yahoo used to run all these chat rooms. All right. And they would have some that were local, like West Virginia would have one. That's where I met Teresa on one of these chat rooms one time. And they would be just for your locale. Now, does that mean other people couldn't show up and be like, well, heck, I'm from West Virginia too? No, it meant they I mean, we assumed. And
Who would do that?
And even like cities, probably to this day they still have this, it would be citywide chat room. You know, I remember Lexington and Louisville had one.
Craigslist has it.
And well, you're getting a little weird there. But these are proper chat room or message boards or whatever. So I would say that's sort of the same thing. Because if you take out the locales, you got nothing. Because any jerk can just, post stuff.
The thing is with the internet, like you said, anybody can hop in there no matter where they're from, boom, and just say that's where they're from. Back in the BBS days, I mean, if you got on a BBS, it was generally assumed that you were within a certain prefix and area code. Yeah. Otherwise, you're paying long distance charges.
Right.
And most people did not want to do that.
I mean, you could call up a BBS in like Cleveland or Tecumseh and be like, yeah, that's where I live, right there. But why would you do that?
Yeah, because then you'd be paying money and get to hear it from the folks.
I mean, yeah, and then, so I don't think that happened that often, where someone would just call up randomly in some random city.
Here's one for you. Remember this. This is something that's bygone as well. How many times did you get fussed at for tying up the phone line because somebody's waiting on a call or something might come up and that you need to keep the lines
We got that all the time,
clear.
didn't we? Now, what I would do is like my domain. This is the good thing about being in high school. Is like my domain was the night. I went to everyone was in bed. I'd make my move, and so I'd stay up until 2 or 3 in the morning. I was always a zombie at school. Because of BBS. That's right.
Well, but in my case, my parents were concerned that something might go down with their parents or family or something, so they wanted to keep the lines open. Which looking back at the time, I mean, I was annoyed. I was like, nothing's going to happen, but I can understand their reasoning.
Now that you're an adult.
Right.
Now, they got you a second phone line, didn't they, eventually? No, they never did?
No.
I thought you got a second phone line.
I was looking at it near the end.
Yeah.
Because I was actually thinking of, at one point, setting up a BBS, but it never really panned out.
I think everyone thought about setting one up. I had one. I wish I could remember. You remember the... you may hear read any Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy? Remember the restaurant at the end of the universe? Mm-hmm. What was it called?
The restaurant at the end of the universe?
No, but it had a name. Marrowways. That was going to name my BBS because at the time I was really going through a thing. And I had one. Now, it wasn't as elaborate as Chad's. But I went through, I think it was a Swiss, SWIV,
WWIV.
WWIV, that's one I looked at. And I looked at the same one that Hotline was the one I looked at that one.
Now, what did you need? I can't believe we haven't talked about this yet. What is the process of setting up your own BBS?
You want to handle that? It's simple. You don't really need software.
basically it's software, a modem, and depending on if you wanted to store any files on it, I mean, you had to have some sort of storage for that.
Because you got to remember, this is back when the time where no one had hard drives.
Right.
Like some of the BBSs we were on just ran off floppies, and probably I'd say most of them. When I think Batcave was ran on a C64, and I think
not all of them.
I remember Batcave.
not all, but some.
Most people had a small hard drive.
Like I don't know. I doubt it. I bet a lot of people, because a lot of people didn't have files.
Harley did.
Harley did, but yeah, Harley's the guy that ran. Harley Davidson ran of the guy in the States. Did you ever meet Harley? You went to his house, didn't you?
Oh yeah.
You were a co-sysop, weren't you? Or assistant or something like that?
Yeah, until he started showing favors to favoritism toward another person on there that didn't.
Harley was just like a lot of guys that run BBSs, and he would a girl would catch his eye.
It was kind of his dating service.
Yeah, but I never met Harley. What was he? Did he look like a guy that would ride a Harley? Did he have a Harley?
Yeah, he think older Harley Davidson guy.
That makes me happy.
Long hair, like
beard.
Yeah, smoking the curious substances and so forth. I mean, yeah, you got it nailed.
I love that.
Jovial.
What does his house look like? Because this guy's
it looks
BBS
like you would have expected it to.
This guy's BBS was like our favorite. What, the guy in the States? It was our favorite BBS in Huntington. I knew a guy that ran a BBS in Winfield, and it was called, I can't remember the name of it, but his name was Derek, and he was a real wealthy kid, and he ran. But he was super smart. That's something a lot of these guys had in common. But in terms of actually setting the software up, you could set one up in a night and be ready to go, but it'd be generic as hell. Mm-hmm. So a lot of people would like to spruce it up. You could change what the menus say. Do you want it to talk like an old a King Arthur guy, or do you want it to say cool guy stuff or like metal stuff? Did you want to put pictures in there, ANSI graphics? I mean,
I mean, if you're running this off floppy disks, how can you have that much space to have?
Well,
stuff
it doesn't take that much.
It was a much different.
It's not
time.
like It's not like high def video here.
Right,
We're talking
text.
ANSI graphics, which is like a text file.
Okay.
Now, like Chad said, I mean, I would say pretty quick, people would like a guy like the Topol running the hotline. Topol would have, he had good storage on that. He had a lot of files on the hotline.
Well,
so
actually, his co-sysop was the one that provided most of the hardware.
Did he had some CD-ROMs, didn't he, or something like that?
Topol didn't do much for the board. It was, I can't remember his co-sysop's name, but he basically used him.
Yeah, but I mean,
bad situation.
That was the hotline, which is not a board. It's funny. I ended up being an admin on there, but it's not a board I favored because you really wanted to go to the board so the message base was hopping. The files, unless they had pirated stuff, the files didn't mean jack squat, did they? I mean, did you give a crap about anything?
So you weren't like Rob, where you would download like other people's poetry and stuff like that.
I didn't give a crap about poetry. I told you last time.
That shocks me.
I wanted hack, crack, and pirated stuff if I was going for files. And honestly,
if Aaron saw that, he would do something, which I've heard him coin this phrase multiple times. Like on Topol's board, at one time he said he wanted to download splat.splat.
Yeah,
off the board.
You know what that means?
No.
Splat is another word for asterisk. That means
a wild card.
Download everything.
Okay.
But I hadn't thought about that for a while. Splat.splat. I got that from you, by the way, because you always called asterisk splats. So
I still do that today.
I've still got, until a few years ago, I still had a hack crack directory on my hard drive too. And I got that from him too. That's how he labeled all the bomb making stuff and everything would be hack crack. That's where he put all the stuff.
If you've got that stuff, it's long since disappeared from.
Oh yeah, you can't get that no more. But I mean, so storage was something. I mean, you really had like Rob mentions, you had to have some. If you had some storage, you had a lot more clout locally because you could run pirated stuff.
Well, here's another thing that actually back in those days, generally, the people that were more serious about it, they generally wouldn't trade software online. You just go to a board, you'd hook up with people, you'd trade stuff in the mail. Mm-hmm. Like they'd mail you discs full of stuff, you'd
it makes sense because the transfer speed was so slow.
Did you do that?
Forever.
Yeah.
So we did it too.
Times.
Remember,
we had a guy in Jersey.
Well, remember Dad's friend from work?
Sure. Oh yeah.
We went over to that dude's house. I remember him having discs everywhere, and we just copied and copied and copied and copied and copied. Did you go with us that time?
I've been there. Yeah, I went over and got floppy disk full of stuff with Dad.
Oh my god!
It's before we got to drive. You've heard that tale. It's funny that we, when you were pirating software, this is something I wanted to get into. Because it was a pain to pirate software on the BBS, but we all did it. But whenever you wanted something, and it was.
I never did it. I was always 100% legal.
But did you have any moral qualms? I mean, were you young? Did it ever occur to you? I don't think it ever occurred to me that what I was doing was that bad.
Dude, I bought a copy board to copy software. Consider what you're asking here.
I mean, this is the way I looked at it, and I mean, this is maybe controversial. And I felt like. If you're smart enough to get away with it, you were beating the system.
I mean, that's really the way anything works.
But I mean,
that's legitimizing. That's not.
Yeah, I don't want to make it sound like, hey, pirate. But listen, I mean, I can't lie about it because I still do it. In all honesty, but in those days, it was I couldn't buy every bit of software, and I've heard there's always. Software companies come out and say, oh, we lost all this money to piracy. Of all the things I ever pirated and the thousands of discs and everything, I bet 1/50th of it is something I would have ever bought. I mean, most of it I never even played. It's like Rob said, it just sat on a shelf. You just never even fooled with it that much. You might run it one time and then be like, screw this, and I'm not going to bother with it.
Well, that's where they kind of developed the software back then, the way that it kind of started developing from that, because for all intents and purposes, you get a piece of software, you get a game or something, you try it out. I mean, it was too much hit or miss. You don't want to go drop $40 or $50 on something and then it suck. I mean, that happened all the time.
You think that's where like an outfit like Apogee came from that started doing that thing where you could get the demo, and if you liked it, you could buy like the second or third. Like
also that's where a lot of software they started doing the begware and shareware.
Yeah.
I mean, all that evolved from that. Basically, to give people a chance to try a limited version or just have so many days to try it, and then if they liked it, they could buy it, which that was a step in the right direction.
Shareware was a big deal in the BBSs
Yeah.
too. That was something that was, it became quite necessary in a lot of ways to get the utilities you needed. It was almost always like that, and you could register it. And you did register some stuff, didn't you? I know you registered some. I'm trying to think if I've registered a few things over the years.
To this day, I mean, back in those days and to this day, if somebody develops a piece of software and it's a good piece of software, I have no problem supporting them. But the thing is, then, like now, there's just so much junk. So much stuff that just doesn't do what it's supposed to do, doesn't work right.
It's worse now with the phones. It's much worse.
Yeah, but you don't want to have to sink money into something that you're never going to be able to use.
Yeah, I don't want to sink money in anything. Period.
See, my college days were all pirating software for the collection purpose of it. Hardly played anything.
Yeah,
I don't pirate any games anymore. I don't pirate.
I don't either.
I don't pirate, and I still play games, but I just buy games now because I have money and I'm able to buy. I'm trying anything that I can easily rent, movie wise. I digitally now. I'm trying to think of the last thing I watched or played pirated. My gosh, I don't listen to music, so that's irrelevant.
there's so much streaming stuff now too. It's almost pointless.
Yeah, I mean,
I never download any MP3s just because I used to listen to whatever you want, go to YouTube or whatever.
I'm a bit like Chad said. I'm a big person to say if it's good, I want to support them. I want them to grow. And there are programs that I've bought because I like the company, because I like what they're doing more so than the actual product of the time, hoping that they'll get somewhere down the line.
But that's a recent development. When you were pirating some of the BBSs, you had to probably know.
I had no money. I had no money.
I mean, really, that's part of it too. You're getting stuff. Part of it's I mean, for me, the BBS thing was part of it was just the thrill of it. It's like, man, that's a game I want, and there it is, and I can get it from sitting here at the house. I can have it downloaded tomorrow morning. Well, I'm in.
Yeah.
You didn't even think about the fact that it took like hours to download one disc of it. You're just like, I gotta have it. You know?
Yeah. It was very much a collection thing because Big Red Racing is probably the only game I actually regret pirating and not buying. because I played so much of
You
it.
did love that. You know, something else you got to consider is when you would download like let's say I downloaded 3 or 4 disc stuff, you had to be sitting there with someone to store it because for the majority of the BBS days that I had no hard drive, and so if you're downloading disc after disc, that junk just doesn't sit there in the ether. You got to have a disc ready to go, which means it's not like now where I could be like, I'm going to download a season of blah, and then I go to work and come back, it's done. I'm great. No, you had to sit there with a disc, and the second it finished that one, you got to swap that one out, start up your X modem or your Z modem, and keep going. Am I wrong? And you had no choice in the matter. You had nowhere to store it. So piracy in those days, you pirate more. I could go home right now and download more in 20 minutes, and I probably cumulatively downloaded the entire time I was on BBSs because of the speed difference. It's ridiculous. So you couldn't really be like, Rob talks about in his book all the discs he's got for the C64, and I had a ton of discs for the Amiga, for example, but the majority of that stuff came from me downloading a few discs, then swapping them with people. Like Chad said, that's when you meet up with your buddies, or you find a source that's got stuff you don't have, and you make a deal.
That was another thing that came of BBS's too. There'd be a lot of meets arranged for people just to swap software. Because you play a game so many times, you get tired of it. Somebody else hadn't played it, they want to play it, and they're in the same boat with something else.
Let me ask you a question. Did you ever get so desperate where, like, there was a game that you saw on the BBS and you've been waiting for this to pop up forever, and you look at your pile and you don't have any more blank discs? Did you ever take a disc that already had stuff on it and just overwrite it?
Absolutely.
All the time.
Anything that I had back in those days, I kept.
Yeah, he's an archivist, but yeah, I've done it. And I'll tell you something else I've done. I know that I've downloaded disc 2 of a 3-disc game and it's bad on a BBS. Will I dial Chicago to get it? Will I dial Minneapolis? Yes. And not tell my folks? And so when they get that...
Well, they'd find out.
They would find out, but I wanted the game. And so often, and this happened quite a bit, is you would pay more for long distance than the game would be worth.
Yeah.
And so, of course, I was a kid. I was just like, free game. Well, no, it wasn't really free. Someone's playing for your hour call in Minneapolis. It ain't you, buddy, but someone's paying for it. So you had to sort of, as I got older, I was like, okay, I got to look at the cost efficiency of this particular move here. And it was a lot easier just to go and have a copy party. Plus, it was another way to socialize. Socializing was a big part of it, wasn't it? It really was.
Yeah.
And especially when you're in your college years, I would never give that time back. This is sad, but it was really my major social outlet, was just the people I met. I didn't know anybody in Huntington. Some of my friends eventually moved there, but when I moved there, I didn't know anyone, and I wasn't a real outgoing guy at the time, and so meeting Chad down there and Road Warrior and Starman and Love Child and all these other people, those are my friends. I didn't know them, and I could see my friends online or I could see them in person, and it was a very similar experience both ways. It was fun. Can you imagine having live chat and stuff back in those days? It would have changed the dynamic in a big way.
Ironically, some BBSs, none that I can think of in this area, but some BBSs had the capability where they could have multiple phone lines set up, and they could do that.
Yeah, there weren't too many around here. Really, most of the time, you could only you could chat with a sysop if they were in. And something you could do was great, which you could page the sysop. Did you ever do that when you were?
No, I didn't want to do that with people.
You normally want to go to the radar because a lot of times what you're doing on the board is probably stuff the sysop wouldn't like. Like I remember many times trying to guess the password to a VIP section. And I'm like, man, I hope he's not watching. Blah 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 blah.
So were your actions? All of your actions were visible on the computer?
Absolutely. When he sat there, he could watch you do all your business.
I didn't know that.
If you're writing an email, or I guess it was an email, but if you're like, screw you, sysop, but he could watch you typing it and be like,
typing your post.
And so he could get it. He could jump in at any moment.
Let's back up for just a second. Yeah. So BBS, only one person can connect at a time.
Normally, unless they've got multiple phone lines.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, like, a large percentage of your time was spent just kind of waiting around. Like, if you're sitting at home and you want to connect to your favorite board, just sort of waiting for it to free up.
Pound the phone over and over.
Yeah.
They had redialers built into the software.
Although often, like I mentioned this briefly before, but we didn't go into it that much, is that you would that's why you needed a big list. I used a program called Telex when I got the PC. But on the Amiga, gosh, what the heck was I using? Most of my BBS I did some BBS on the Amiga, but most of it was done with my Tandy, and you would have I've got printouts, I still got them, of all the BBSs, all the local BBSs, Polaris, Hotline, Batcave, Guyana States, River Cities.
You need to take a picture of that. And
I will
put it up on.
But I've got all these phone numbers, and so you're like, okay, I can't get on Batcave tonight. And sometimes the BBS would go down. The worst thing is if it went down and you didn't know if it was coming back, because anytime they went down, you weren't sure they were ever coming back. And when a BBS went down forever, it was sad, wasn't it? You're like, man, I like that BBS.
And I mean, there is really no incentive at all for somebody running a BBS to keep it open, other than just sort of the popularity.
Well,
of it.
They would also
they
used it to get software too. Sometimes if they had pirate section or porn or whatever they were after, they could get it. But yeah, most of the time, like Guyana States, Roy didn't have a file section that was. I mean, it had some files. It wasn't anything. It wasn't that.
It was all about the forums and the games.
And so. He was just running it as like I don't want to say it's a public service. He got off on it. He was his BBS.
Right.
And that was sort of your ultimate goal in a weird way, was to have your, well, don't you think? It was like, man, if I ran the BBS, here's what I would do, blah. But when you're a user and you can't get on, you're right, you just hit readout and you go watch TV for a while. Or if you got to get your fix, you just dial another one. And there was a couple that you could always get on. The one I remember is West Virginia Net, which was a scholastic one, and it sucked. It sucked, and it had a file limit. But I mean, at least you were doing something.
You were on, and you were typing, and you were.
Well, you could also, the software was smart enough that you could set it up basically just to go through and just dial one after another until it got through to one. Once you dial it, it took it out of the queue.
And I remember you can remember that distinctly, that little noise. And then when it failed or you got disconnected, it made that noise. Am I wrong? That's what it sounded like. I mean, I've heard it so many times. I've got it memorized. And when you hear you rush in the room from whatever you're doing. It's time to go to work. And you get on there. Okay, I've got X amount of. Some BBS is limited to the amount of time you had. Quite a few of them actually.
Generally, it was about an hour.
Yeah.
Was there a countdown timer anywhere on the screen?
No. It's probably about 5 minutes left. I think it would warn you sometimes.
Well,
sometimes
of course, the software like Telex you were mentioning, it showed how long you were on.
Right, so you sort of knew.
You knew.
But I mean, man, when you were doing something, you just got kicked. You'd be like, "What?" You were like, at first, you're like, "Oh, was that my end or was that them?" Okay, let me dial back in. Oh crap, it's busy. Oh no, what'd I do? I was in the middle of doing this.
And sometimes there would be an hour limit for the day.
Yep.
And so you would, and I remember many times being like, "Okay, I'm done. I'm satisfied. I got my hour in." But it was very addictive, wasn't it? I mean,
there were, which especially with the gaming, I will say this. There were a lot of people, myself included, that sometimes if you had important stuff going on in the games, you would want to get on right before midnight. Then right when the clock ticked, you'd want to be right on after midnight.
2 turns in a row.
So you get 2 in a row.
Yeah. The gaming was part of it towards the end. I didn't game that much at the beginning. But towards the end, I played a lot of games.
You got in, what was it, the Space Dynasty?
Space Dynasty. I know, Brent, you played.
All I did was play Trade Wars and stuff.
Trade Wars, Space Dynasty.
Usurper.
They had
that?
Yeah, and I remember that Guyana States had a pro wrestling game.
Also,
I remember that too.
There was one like sex game where you would go, you would walk the streets and you could sleep with different people. No.
What?
I don't remember this.
GTA, the door game.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, you could buy protection.
What?
Or not buy protection.
What?
And just risk it. And every time you slept with someone, you got money. So
how does that work? Where does that work?
It was basically virtual hooker. I can't remember.
But it's going in the
virtual hooker. The door game.
So it's like
what were you calling?
It's called
I'm trying to think. There's no way I can remember what it's called.
Hard R80.
Because I remember you would, if you got an STD, you could choose. If you got an STD, you could choose to not. You could just choose to end your character.
End him?
Yeah. Make a new character, or you could choose to spread it.
Yes.
Now, is this the start of computer viruses?
No.
Oh my.
No. But I distinctly remember because you would be like, man, I don't have enough money to buy protection, but I'm like $4 away from buying like that hat I really want. It was something really stupid, and I'd be like, all right, I'm just gonna go with it. Chlamydia? Crap! It's like, well, I'm still really close to that hat. I'm gonna just go. I'm gonna roll the dice.
Chlamydia. I'll tell you what, that must be a hell of a hat.
Even then, hats were a big deal in gaming.
Oh my god.
Oh my god, I'll never remember the name of it. I distinctly,
That is a
8-year-old me remembers playing that game.
Oh god, 8? Luke is 8. That is disturbing. I gotta see what he's doing on that tablet.
Are you playing Walk the Streets?
If I ever hear Luke go, chlamydia, my hat! Something's gonna sound.
Was it called Drug Wars?
That was a game. I do remember a game
Yeah.
called Drug Wars.
I think it was
Maybe.
called Drug Wars.
Oh,
Yeah, because you would sleep around to get money to buy drugs. Yeah. I think that's what it was. I think it was Drug Wars.
oh man, those are door games, but man, I don't remember that door game. But I do remember the game Drug Wars, so maybe you're honest. I bet you can still play that somewhere. We'll have to look.
No.
We may have to go in there and give it a shot.
So do I go with that
I mean,
protection, or do I just take the chance? I want that hat.
I'll risk chlamydia
I
for a hat any day of the week.
Man, what you remember from your childhood.
I know, that's
my
wacky.
gosh.
Door games, though, they became pretty popular there towards the end.
Yeah.
You know, and they've developed into something pretty awesome. I mean, they were fun. They also had door casinos. Door games were like what they called online games, and then BBS did.
Now, what's the difference between a door game and a mud?
Now
Well, MUDs are multi-user dungeons.
You're talking to
no.
Mr. Mud.
Really? 'Cause
Right
I've
here.
always heard tell about
He is
muds,
the
but I've
Mud.
never-
Okay.
Tell him your tale, Chudley.
I'm not going to go into much detail.
Oh, I can't
Think
play
as far as a MUD, think EverQuest minus the graphics. It's all text based, but it's
And rampant
similar.
cheating.
No,
Okay,
we
go
never
ahead.
cheated.
All right, go ahead. Tell your story.
Well, I'm done.
Oh,
Listen, this guy played MUDs morning, noon, and night. He got so into MUDs that he moved his bed beside the computer. So don't lie, because you did. And he would, so he could lay down while he was typing. He had this gimmick where he made his name to kill someone in the MUD he was playing. What was it called? Vampire Wars? Something
God
like that?
Wars.
God Wars. You had to type in
a lot of wars
you had to
back
type
in the BBS days.
You had to type in kill and then the name of the character, and his name was like 50 characters long, unpronounceable, so they had to change the rules because of Chad.
Which it was quite clever. It impressed everybody because I'd be walking around and people would be trying to kill me and nobody would ever get it
They
right.
couldn't get you out.
Let's talk about the real world effects.
You're the Wilt Chamberlain of MUDs. They changed the rules.
I'd say
for you.
Brent's Drug War story is more Wilt Chamberlain-like.
Yeah.
But let me tell you, here's the problem with
You don't see him in a hat. That's all I'm saying.
Chad was so addicted to this MUD that he wouldn't leave the house. He would stop. He would do nothing but play the MUD nonstop. Am I wrong? Tell me how much you played that
Well,
MUD.
I mean, I played it a lot.
He played it
Obviously, I
all
still
the time.
worked and I still did real life
He would
stuff.
call in to work.
No, I didn't.
Yeah, all the
I
time.
never called in to
He's
work.
a MUD playing mudder. He's a crazy mudder. He played this thing all the time. Every time I talked to him, he was playing this MUD. He was talking about what was going on in the MUD. I thought to myself, my God. And finally, what made you stop playing this MUD? Because you played the hell out of it for
Honestly, I
months.
couldn't
Was it
tell
always
you.
the same one? Was it God War all the way?
Well, that was the name of it. There were a cajillion.
But I
of
mean,
them,
is
so
that the one
there's-
that you focused your energies on?
Yeah.
Was it classic Chad where you played it obsessively until the point where you're like, I'm sick of this, and you stop playing it? Because that sounds like you.
Yeah, I think it
Yeah.
was something like that.
I mean, trust me, he played the hell out of this MUD.
But the thing is, unlike other people that have gotten addicted to online games, say for example, EverQuest, I basically came back out into the real world eventually.
Yeah, because City Heroes shut down.
I wasn't that bad.
Oh, he just nailed you there, dude. But yeah, MUDs were a bit. Although you didn't play the MUDs on the BBSs, did you? That was on the internet, right?
I'm trying to remember if that was the internet or was BBS.
It was in. I think they had.
That was internet.
Yeah, that was early internet. Of course, this is now you can play whatever you want on the internet, but in the very early days of the internet, one of the things that established it was the fact that you could play games on it that were better than what you were playing on BBS. So AOL had games, Genie had games, all these services had games, and that were better than BBS
They were
games.
graphically better for sure, because
Sure.
they were graphics.
Yeah,
But I mean-
I remember because you had to telnet to it to play it.
Yeah,
So it was on the internet.
But the games in the BBSs, they were a lot of fun. They got better. Sometimes I remember at the very, very end, I even saw some antsy, best sort of like action arcade type games on the BBS. But I mean, this is at the very end, and they were, by today's standards, they'd be worse than garbage. But they were at the time. It was unique because you were moving a cursor on the screen or whatever. Most of them were all text based. But again, the demise of BBSs is very much in lockstep with the demise of that sort of gaming in general. When PC games started looking awesome, people started demanding more attractive games that with more arcadey type gameplay. It was inevitable that stuff that was text-based was going to go by the wayside, and that's exactly what happened. It also coincided with the internet, so it worked out perfectly.
It's a perfect storm of doom.
Although I will say you can still play door games, you can still play them on the internet right now. Mm-hmm. I've never done it because I don't know.
It doesn't hold up.
Well, I don't know. It may hold up. I don't know if it's something I could. If I play it, I'm like, what am I doing here? Can you go back? I don't know. I mean, you can, but should you?
It's going back and watching old episodes of Buck Rogers or something. It's like it's not the same.
Yeah, it's tough. But, it was fun while it lasted, wasn't it? We had a good time. We met a lot of fun people. I met the Chud here. How long did you say I've known you now? 600 years?
Not quite that long.
Forever. 30 years.
Going on it, yeah.
So, hey, who knew that first night when we went to see Ghost together that we still hanging out?
Of all movies to go see.
You told me to go see it. I thought it was a horror film. I was...
when they reenacted.
When you go see Ghost with Shadow Master and Road Warrior, you've probably stepped in something. And since a lot of the online people thought I was a woman, did you guys know I was a man?
There you go.
I didn't know.
Now you know who's there.
I mean, honestly, even in
I
those
still
days,
have questions. I'm your brother.
I knew it was coming. Take it to the house, bro.
All right, guys, we're going to wrap this multi-part BBS Memories series up. If there are any BBS-related things that we haven't covered that you'd like us to in a future episode, please leave us a comment on the chat or send us a message at amigospodcast.com. We'll see you all later. Adios.
Bye.
Bye. Bye. Bye. Bye. Bye.